not have met me, my name is Deidre Peterson, and I'm the President and CEO of the Shelton Mason County Chamber. And we are just really excited to have these community leaders with us here today. We have the county, the city, the port, the PUD, and the hospital. So they're going to be sharing with us their perspectives on great accomplishments, what's new and next, and what you can expect in the community. So as you all can see, panelists, we have a very interested community wanting to know about what's happening. And this will be a rapid fire style panel. So our goal is to maximize the amount of information we can provide you in this hour. And we'll be going through these questions and bouncing to each one of them as we go. Katie from my team in the back will be running AV, so bear with us here as we have a couple of supporting images for slides as we go through. But really this is an opportunity for us to hear from all of the community stakeholders what we can expect and what is really important for us to know moving into 2026. So first and foremost, thank you panelists for being here today. So rather than a broad overview of the agencies, which we've done in the past, we really wanted to focus on what's shaping Mason County and what's impacting the business community, where you're seeing momentum in the future. So the first question, and we're going to start with the city for this question, is in the past year, what project or change within your organization has had the greatest positive impact on Mason County's business climate or economic activity, and what outcomes are emerging from that work? So Mark?
Appreciate it, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I can't narrow it down to one in any of these questions, so forgive me if they go a little long. The rest of the panel, you can fire me as the rapid fire portion, fire me.
Take your time, Mark. Yeah, you're good.
I think as a lot of our governmental agencies will talk about today is maintaining our services that we're providing the community, and in times where financially we're trying to strive to meet all of the goals that our community and the expectations our community have. But so that is a constant improvement, I guess, and measures that we're taking. Some of the things we've done within the permitting realm is we have refined how our land use code is referencing our building code, and one of those things are our permitted uses. We've had archaic language within our code for probably 30 or 40 years, and I don't know when video rental stores went out of vogue, right? But we still had those in our code, right? So if you wanted to open a video rental store in a general commercial zone or a mixed use zone, that was still within our code, and it's very confusing. So we aligned the building code with our land use code, so they had some consistency. It was a little more clear with the development community on what would be allowed within certain zones. Height limits were removed throughout our city, so really the building code dictates how high a building can be built within our city. We certainly have some design elements or design standards that are attached to that as well. So we have some compatibility that we meet within our neighborhood residential zone or our downtown zone. On the public safety end of things, we instituted a flock license plate reader program over the last year, and this reads license plates throughout the community and lets our law enforcement officers know when there's a stolen plate, or we can actually do a search for plates that might be associated with crimes within the community. We've had great success. There's 12 cameras in the community, about just over 100 hits, if you will, each 30 days, 10 arrests so far. A couple of those usually are their felonies, so it's usually stolen vehicles. We've even had some crimes against children involved with that too, so we're really pleased with that technology. It's a bit controversial throughout the state of Washington, so we're navigating that and making sure that we can meet public records requests and we don't put the city in a position where we're accepting additional liability. And then I'll go back to infrastructure again real quick. Angleside water storage and spending some money we got from our delegation last year, $1.8 million, to increase our capacity there on an existing tank so we can meet some of the growth needs that we're seeing on the south side of town. And then I'll talk a little bit about development, but we've on the north side of town with Olympic Heights, but tying in two water pressure zones, the upper Mountain View zone to the Mountain View zone that was done through private investment with the developer there, has added more capacity, more storage, so we can continue meeting the demands on our community as far as potable water and fire flow storage. So did I hit my two?
Yep, absolutely.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you so much, Mark. Next up is Wendy Smith from Port of Shelton. So Wendy, for the port, what was the biggest project or change within the last year that you'd like to highlight today?
I think, I kind of want to go on if those of you who were here last year, I was worried about retirement. We have a lot of kind of like retiring employees, but I think that's bringing us some positives. And I'll just note that I had to replace my front office person, and the new hire is in the younger generation. So she's got our website looking good. She's, marketing things. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that was a really important change for us, especially with the vacancies we're seeing. So all of us here at the table, all of you in the room, we're all working together as cohesive partners, I think, and I think that has really changed the face of the region from whether we're applying for different, money from different agencies, federally or locally, for appropriated funding, whatever it may be, we're all working together, and I think that's made a huge difference in the way the port's operating. Just the fact that, maybe that's another question. I think I'll leave that. I think that I'll end with that.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks so much, Wendy.
bet.
From PUD 3, we have Sheila Corson. So Sheila, for the PUD, what project or change has had the greatest positive impact on the business community or economic activity?
We've been very busy with very large expansion capacity projects all over Mason County. There's a couple of them that I want to mention in particular. So just about almost exactly a month ago, we had a ribbon cutting and groundbreaking up in the Belfair UGA area with an upgraded substation up there and something we call a switching station, which is basically going to open up more capacity up there. Well, I mentioned that partly because not only has that been a big project, but we're doing something pretty similar down for the Shelton UGA. And last year we were talking about the grant that we got with the port to do some feasibility studies. Now we're doing that work associated with that grant to look at a new substation, new switching station, all of that around the Shelton UGA to open up a lot more capacity, as well as some backups, some resiliency when we do have outages and that sort of thing. So that's big. We're always moving forward on that. And this year happens to be our 25th anniversary of our broadband department. So we've been building out fiber to homes and anchor institutions for 25 years now, which is a really awesome thing to be able to do, and brought in millions of dollars so far to do that work, which is pretty awesome to be able to keep that more affordable, hopefully, for some folks, because it's not always easy. We have the fiber hoods going on. We have more letters going out all the time to let people know that fiber is now available in your area if you want to sign up. And just yesterday, we did a presentation to the Curb Board for another project to expand up in Belfair and everything like that. And right now we've been awarded a loan for that, more work. So there's a lot going on when it comes to building out infrastructure, and that's always something we're going to be having updates every year on the process there. So hopefully next year we'll even have more for you on the Shelton side as well. But yeah, the substation photo is I popped that in there because there's a lot there. I circled the ones that are going to be discussed later, but that big hole there on the left, that red circle near the Johns Prairie label, that's where we're looking at for the Shelton UGA, where to put a new substation, and that's going to help back up the entire western side of the county once we're able to do that, as well as open up that capacity. So those are big.
Thank you, Sheila. Next, hear from Eric Moll from Mason Health. Eric, what project or change within the hospital district has had the greatest positive impact on the business climate or economic activity in the past year?
All right, Deidre, thanks. So we're in the home stretch of a $22 million capital project that should finish up about June of next year. Probably the two big notable things is in terms of expansion of access is replacement of MRI, so upgrading and replacing an MRI, and that's kind of full circle for me because I oversaw the project that put the MRI in to begin with 11 years ago, so kind of fun to see the replacement coming in. And then the second is finishing expansion of our Mason Clinic, so we had shelf space down in the first floor, and opening that up and finishing that has allowed us to. We just finished signing a contract for the third primary care physician. So we just hired in the last month 3 primary care physicians to come into our community. The first one I think will start in February. So that's a pretty notable. And so having that space so that we can, again, continue to provide more access for the community that desperately needs it. So,
Fantastic, thank you. And last but not least, Travis Adams from Mason County. What project or change within the county has had the greatest positive impact on business climate or economic activity in the past year?
Super hard question, because obviously there's a lot of moving parts in the county with
Yeah.
a whole bunch of different departments, so I'll probably hit two really quick. One I think is super cool and great work done by our Department of Community Development. They've been working on implementing an online system for doing permits over the last couple of years. They implemented what's called SmartGov, where you can now start putting your applications and doing all your stuff for building projects online. In 2019, it took about 120 days just to get a permit issued. And then that's before you even got going. As of October, they're down to 19 days on average for getting permits for So just great work by them. I'm building a house right now, and I can tell you it actually really is that fast. Get online, go for it. It's a pretty quick process. So that's really great work. The other thing I would probably highlight is the work by our folks out there at Public Works. They've been doing a lot of work in the last couple of years to bring a lot of the projects in-house that normally if they would have contracted out for, took a lot more time and a lot more money. So a lot of things like striping roads and doing a lot of the chip seal and a bunch of other culvert projects, things like that. Now that they're doing those in-house, they're doing them for less money and able to do more with the tax dollars that you're spending. So those are probably two of the big.
Great, thank you so much. The next question for all of our panelists is, each of your organizations is engaged in long-range planning, from capital facilities to land use to service capacities. What upcoming planning decision or policy shift do you believe will most influence where and how Mason County grows in the next 5 to 10 years? And this time we're going to kick it right back to Travis, so we'll start with Mason County.
Okay, I'll do two really quick. One boring, one I think is exciting. I'll do the boring one first. That's the comprehensive plan that we've been working on pretty extensively over the last year. I see a whole lot of heads nodding because there's a lot of people involved in that plan. And it's basically the blueprint for future growth and expansion in Mason County as the county sees it. It involves partners from the tribes to the city to PUD and all sorts of folks that come together to talk about everything from infrastructure to how we're going to grow in the coming years. So it's a work in progress. If you really want to see all that work, you can go to our website. We have a web page dedicated to that. So go take a look. There's been a lot of work put into it. The other thing that I will throw out there, it's kind of been going on in the background, but for those of you who lived in Mason County for a long time and you know about the old Simpson Rec area, which is now Green Diamond's property, we've been in the process at the county for quite some time now to see if we could acquire that to maintain it as a park. So we did have a pretty comprehensive feasibility study done. That feasibility study has been completed. Now we're in negotiations with Green Diamond to continue that process going on. So work in progress. It's kind of all being done in the background right now, but that's could be coming a lot more public soon.
Fantastic, thank you. Mark, from the city.
Yeah, absolutely. To echo Travis's comment about our comprehensive plan, year and a half or more effort with the city and county as partnership, because we're on the same planning horizon and really focused on how we could align land use within the city and in our case the Shelton UGA. Some of the things we have addressed is a regional retail zone, as we see in the north side of town up at the Wallace. That's really a messy map, I apologize, but it's got some refinement still to do. But addressing regional retail, where we see the big box stores on the north side of town, and in the past these have been general commercial zones, the same as what we've seen along Olympic Highway North or Olympic Highway South, and that business district that is along those corridors, and separating those out because it's not the same. They're not as large parcels. We want to attract not only these large retail establishments that want to be close to the highway and amongst each other, but also the smaller retail, the mom and pops and things like that, and focus our zoning on what's gonna bring those businesses to our community and be able to be as nimble as we can, so we don't have this overarching general commercial zone. We're also looking at targeted residential zones. How can we focus density is what the state's requiring us to do within our comprehensive plan in the city in a thoughtful manner. And part of that is targeted residential zones where we have multifamily currently existing, where we believe we can upsize, add density in the right way, where there's infrastructure already in place. It's going to be less expensive to develop, and then adopt a multifamily tax exemption ordinance sometime next year, hopefully within the first half of next year, that encourages that multifamily development within the community with some property tax exemptions for that. So it encourages those developers to come. If you've seen a lot of that development downtown with downtown Olympia with multifamily, that's a lot of it is occurring because of the multifamily tax exemption ordinances that they've addressed. You'll see the targeted residential zones in the yellow with the yellow stars. So really focusing on where we already have density, where there's already infrastructure, so it's a little cheaper to develop.
Fantastic. We're going to bump down to Eric and ask Mason Health the same question. Long-range planning, what upcoming planning decision or policy shift do you think will most influence where and how Mason County grows the next 5 to 10 years?
All right, right on. So first I'll say as we do our long-range forecasting, we look at first county growth, and so which is awesome because a lot of rural communities aren't growing, so it's one of the huge pluses for Mason County among many. So we project that the population will grow from, I think, roughly 62,000 now to north of 80,000. That's notable because then we look at what's the needs of a community that size, and so then that's where there's already a need, but to be able to sustain providing services, that's where you kind of have to have that kind of good mix. And so radiation oncology is an example of a service line that we need to be able to grow into. There's service lines that are definitely needed now that we project expanding into, like dermatology, ENT, GI, urology. Primary care, as an example, is part of this forecasting. As we look at that kind of growth, the community will need more than, I think it's roughly between 14 to 17 more primary care physicians. So being able to have the facilities to house those services, both in terms of medical office space and hospital space. So we're kind of looking at the designs and new hospital wing, how that look, where we put the medical office building. So we have those plans, and we have some interesting dynamics happening now at the federal and state level. So we kind of look at how do we navigate that. So certainly HR 1, big beautiful bill, that has big implications to Medicaid coverage, and we estimate that the impact really starts in 2027. We impact that could affect as many as 5,000 Mason County residents in terms of just having coverage through Medicaid. And so we look at the implications of that. We still think we need to be on a growth trajectory because demand is still, even if you took 5,000 people, and they're accessing the healthcare system, they're still going to be accessing healthcare. So there'll still be that. It'll just move to uncompensated care, but probably demand goes down in that scenario overall. But we still think that demand is higher than what we're providing at this current level. So we still need to grow even with some of those big federal changes. We also look at, there's a lot of uncertainty with the state. So the state also is a significant payer of healthcare, and 80% of our reimbursement or revenue comes from either Medicaid or Medicare. So what the feds and state are doing on a policy level obviously has massive implications to us. So that's where we kind of first take care, and just to let you into just our planning and just kind of more a little bit of philosophy. We continue to defend the balance sheet, making sure in terms of how much leverage we have with debt versus building up cash reserves and other types of things. make sure that we stay in a very strong fiscal position. So as we look at those needs and a little bit of this uncertainty, we don't jeopardize kind of the overall kind of community access to healthcare by getting a little bit too far out over our skis. So that's kind of how we're navigating a lot of this uncertainty, is continuing to plan, continue to make incremental improvements. Holding off at this point, I probably wouldn't make a big, and we're not fortunately in a position where we're trying to make a big $100 million bet. It wouldn't be a great time to do that, but I hope, and healthcare is a notoriously cyclical industry. In 3 years, we'll probably have a lot more certainty, and it probably will be feel a lot different than it might now. So we'll continue to plan and position ourselves.
Very good, thank you. Wendy, do you want to talk about long-range planning at the port and what you expect for the next 5 to 10 years?
I do. So at the port, we do things a little bit different, obviously. We don't have the big comprehensive plan ordeal, but we do have an airport master plan. So although it doesn't feel like it affects most of you in the room, it definitely affects you in some way, and that is by either bringing more airport traffic, which could lead to corporate jets, that kind of thing. So there's definitely a reason why we do this, and it's a good thing. As well as future, what are future needs? Are they airport runways that are long runways and need lots of travel for larger planes, or is it electric vehicle takeoff and landing? So we're looking at less runways. So we haven't done this plan since about 2013, and so it's timely. But we're looking at all those things, as well as increased hangars. That seems to be kind of the need around the community. And as you've all heard, the rumblings around, siting for different airports to transport people, that will probably not happen here, at least in our lifetimes. But most likely we become a larger use of general aviation. So we'll get more hangars, that kind of thing. But we'll look to future things that people are relying on, and that's what the future of the aircraft will be. So that's exciting. I think it's really great to have this panel, because as people talk, businesses siting in our community are what we're all about, and we're trying to bring business here. And as I sat at the Washington Public Ports Seminar the last couple of days and heard the forecast through the state, it's not always a real pleasant picture, as everyone knows. But to incentivize that in some fashion, we have to differentiate ourselves. So the airport's one way, rail is another. For those of you that don't know, we have a rail spur right out here at Johns Prairie, highlighting that and upgrading to that. And trying to define that in terms of what our customer base is looking for when they're looking for property. We have great industrial, usable, flat land that has lots of power and lots of amenities, city water, our water, maybe soon to be sewer. We've done some studies to look at sewer coming out here to Johns Prairie. So all of that, I think, is just good long-range planning on our part.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
And rounding out this question, Sheila from the PUD.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into long-range planning for us, and a lot of things that's really, we have to look more regional-wide, because, most of you are aware, we don't generate all of our power here in Mason County. In fact, we don't get any of the power that's generated here in Mason County. So we have to look region-wide, we have to look industry-wide. And one of the big discussions right now is what they term resource adequacy, but it's basically the question, can we serve power to everyone all the time? Not just on the average, because a lot of people do averages when they're planning, but we have to look at the peaks, especially, right? So are we, in those really cold days when it's the most important that you've got your power on to run your heaters, but there's really hot days when it's most important, is there enough power for everybody? So that's what we're really working with a lot of different industry partners to go out to that, because we know that demand is increasing, not just from growth, but there's that. There's also just electrification in general, whether it's buildings or transportation, that sort of thing. And then, of course, there's more industrial, technological kind of demand coming in, and everybody's talking about data centers and all of that. So increase is going up. How are we going to get enough generation? And you can't build anything overnight, especially when it's generation. So we're seeing the region working hard together to try to solve these problems, to make things happen, to get the transmission where it needs to be, to get the generation where it needs to be. And of course, that takes time. It also means that we're going to see a rising cost of power, and we have seen that already coming from our sources of power, where we're going to be charged more to send it on to everyone else. And so we're also seeing a huge emphasis in hardening the system, making sure it's resilient to wildfire or whatever might come our way. So there's a lot going on in the next 5 to 10 years. And we can combat some of those concerns for not having enough or not being able to build fast enough with something that has already been mentioned a little bit, the permitting issues, the siting issues, which is often a state or federal issue. So we're involved in a lot of those things. The challenge really is getting through all those permitting stages, bringing that clean, renewable energy where it needs to be, both sides of the Cascades, because a lot of our power comes from the east side of the state, and we hope to see a lot more of those projects develop in the years ahead. There's a lot of exciting things going on in the world of energy. If you're not aware, in the state of Washington, we've got a brand new hydrogen fuel center going in. We've got fusion companies going in. We've got advanced nuclear going in. It's really exciting to be in this industry. The next 5 to 10 years are going to be really interesting as a region. So
perfectly set up for the next transition, which is to talk about growth and redevelopment.
Hey!
So, as growth and redevelopment are accelerating in parts of Mason County, what opportunities or pressure points are you seeing? Infrastructure, housing, transportation, healthcare access, industrial development, that businesses should be aware of, particularly in the year ahead. So this time we're going to start with Wendy at the port.
So I would start that by saying all the housing starts are exciting, but make me nervous that business is not keeping up with that. That being said, it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. How are you going to bring your business if you don't have a house to live in? How are you going to bring your business if there's not good healthcare, school system, whatever? So as all these things ramp up, I think we're all kind of aligned, and we're doing a lot of that all together, which I think is a good thing. I also, at the port, we're seeing a lot of business succession. So again, with retiring employees, we're seeing a lot of owners that are selling, that kind of thing. Luckily, we're seeing it in terms of they're wanting to stay here. So they're selling to business owners that want to remain here, and they're going to bring, I think, outside business to us as well. So I think we have a good opportunity to capitalize on that, but it is a little, it's always hard to wonder, who's going to fill these houses, or if they fill the houses, where are they going to work? And so we're trying to kind of, I think, formulate a way to work together cohesively, continue those partnerships that we've built, and keep moving forward. So.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
I'm going to bounce back to PUD, and again, looking at what opportunities or pressure points are you seeing, Sheila?
Yeah, I mean, our continued capacity expansion is, as we are going to continue saying over and over again, it does open up more opportunities, of course, but our challenge a lot has been some of that, we're not seeing the growth in the areas that we can best serve it necessarily. So on my map, Pioneer Substation happens to be circled, which serves like Agate, Harstein Island, that sort of area. Built in 1999, we are already needing to upgrade the capacity there, because that's where we're seeing the most growth on our system, percentage-wise, capacity-wise, is out there. So everybody wants to build a nice house somewhere, I guess, in Agate, Harstein Island, apparently, and it's not moving as much toward where we have a whole lot of substations to serve. So some of that, what we call sprawl, is kind of an issue. So another grant, we're obsessed with grants around here. Pioneer Substation, we did get a grant for a couple $1 million to upgrade it. So that'll be coming soon. It takes a while to get a power transformer. Amazon doesn't have them. But that's what I was glad to hear what the city was talking about, because when we're talking about, serving in the areas and the UGAs and the places where we already have the infrastructure, that's huge. So the more we can see things like the added density with the multifamily housing and infill and all of that kind of stuff where we have existing resources, that's the best for us, especially with both power and the fiber side. So we'd love to see that kind of thing happen. And so we're addressing issues when they come up, but we're really excited to see any kind of incentives or encouragement to build where we've already got the power.
Great. And Mark, I know you're going to have a lot to say on this particular topic, but opportunities and pressure points for growth and redevelopment within the city.
Put up, okay, good. This map represents some of the subdivisions we're facing right now. So approximately 2,000 new lots are in the hopper with the city of Shelton
Wow.
here in the near future. Now, realizing market demand is going to dictate some of that, but most of you have already seen the Olympic Heights subdivision just behind Olympic College. That's 199 lots. The next phase of that is 308 lots or so to the east. They're currently working on a pre-submittal. We should see that come in early next year. The Lake Boulevard, the 41 lots there, they're pushing on us. They're ready to move with a notice of application up there as well. So these are coming down the road. The Coffee Creek plat, 364 lots. We have civils for the first 100 lots up there on the south side of town. These are pinch points. Sheila just mentioned it, for all of our utilities and services, whether it's traffic, sewer, water, power, right? Law enforcement. We have to consider that throughout the realm of these developments, from the time they engage us or even before they engage us, right?
Yeah.
Because we look at the available property within the city and say, what's the likelihood this is going to develop? When is it going to develop? How are we going to get our infrastructure there? Now, we have the ability to mitigate that through fees or actual investment from the private developer at the same time. I talked about the water line extension that basically went from the YMCA to Olympic College. That was a tie-in from the water tank, the upper Mountain View zone you see out at by Mason County Public Works, to the Mountain View zone, which is just off of Alpine Way up there. That connected two pressure zones. We had capacity in upper Mountain View, less capacity in Mountain View. You connect those, right? You make one big pressure zone out of it. We have the ability to serve more houses at that point. But again, that's planning. You have to make your investment in some of your development review, design review, and see how that's going to meet it. So working with our local jurisdiction, the schools, we're bringing them into our pre-submission conferences, hopefully working with them with capital facilities plans so they can address the mitigation on how they need to invest in capital improvements to make sure they can meet the needs that may be upwards of 5,000 people when all these lots are developed. So it's an ongoing process. We have the same, actually we have less staff than we had 3 or 4 years ago at the city of Shelton. So we're doing this with more pressure, less staff, and able to turn these things around as much as we can. Soon we'll have a reclaimed water tank, 300,000 gallon reclaimed water tank out at our satellite site out next to the Port of Shelton Sanderson Field. This is a opportunity to invest into commercial and industrial development, because reclaimed water is a lot cheaper than potable water, especially for industrial development. The Corrections Center, Washington State Patrol Academy are currently using this system, but it's a 50,000 gallon tank. It just doesn't have the capacity. So this is an opportunity, especially when we look at hotel sites or other industrial development in that area, that's going to encourage that investment in our community, bring more jobs, living wage jobs, and a better tax base to us. So,
Thank you so much.
map speaks for itself, if you will.
And for Mason County, Travis, do you want to talk a little bit about growth and redevelopment, some of the opportunities and pressure points you're seeing at the county level?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is the entry-level affordable housing and how hard it is for, young families wanting to move here and make a home here, or for folks that live here and want to stay here. I have a 23-year-old daughter who just can't afford to find a place to live on her own. And it's very difficult to attract families here. You combine that with we kind of live in a child care desert here, where there is no child care available for these young families that want to come in and work and stay here. For those of us who want to attract families and get them to come here, or people who want to stay in our communities, that's very much a challenge. And you combine that with we know that there's going to be massive growth in the north end of the county. The federal government's already said that they're going to be spending upwards of $15 billion in the greater Kitsap area up there for expansion, for having the Navy fleet expand up in that area. That's going to be putting a lot of pressure on development in the north end of the county. And we've got the Belfair sewer system that is reaching capacity, which, regardless of whether or not we decide as a county to extend it to the Bremerton area or not, which everybody knows is a hot button topic, even if we keep it in county, it's gonna have to be expanded. We have spray fields that we're gonna have to figure out, or how to deal with the reclaimed water. Just a lot of infrastructure challenges to go along with trying to keep people here or attract them to our town.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
And Eric, as far as the hospital district goes, growth and redevelopment, what opportunities and pressure points are you seeing?
Yeah, well, I kind of already spoke to that a bit, just in terms of, a lot of pressure, of course, on access to healthcare, and meeting community needs. Some of that being just having the space to accommodate the incoming providers. But just building on, I mentioned we do a lot of demographic studies, so we look at, kind of the projections of growth within the community. But another data point that we really pay attention is to the housing starts, because we don't feel that the forecasts of county growth fully factors in all of this housing start potential growth. And so that's, really exciting, but it actually scares us a little bit too, just because of, like what Mark was talking about, 1,000, new starts is pretty overwhelming. And so, again, we're definitely planning and considering that, and paying attention to that.
Thank you so much. Next question, workforce, which of course is very near and dear to all of us in this room. Workforce availability is affecting everything from construction to healthcare to permitting. So if you can talk a little bit about what workforce challenges are most impacting your organization, and how are you adapting to maintain reliable service for residents or employers? And for this one, I'm going to go right back to Eric for this question.
Yeah. So certainly healthcare, like a lot of industries, was pretty hard hit over the last 5 years. And so definitely top of mind, provider availability, physician availability, nurses, you can pretty much go down the whole list of clinicians. And that said, even though we have massive needs in the community, and Mason Health needs to do a lot more to meet those needs, we've actually, I would say, have come out of the last 5 years remarkably well relative to other healthcare. So it's a relative answer. I would point to over this past year, we've hired 8 physicians, so we're getting a lot of good traction in attracting people to Mason County. And I think we've learned to, over the last 15 years, tell the Mason County story better. Because there's a lot of assets within Mason County, obviously natural. There's a different quality of life to attract people to. And then the style of medicine and the collegiality of the medical staff is something that's very attractive to a lot of people. And so it's a very cohesive medical staff. There's a lot of communication, is more team-based. And so that's why we've been able to have the success we've had. So that's something we don't take for granted. So there's a lot of focus on the culture of the medical staff to start with that area, just to, again, hold up the collegiality that happens within that group. For nurses, the Health Science Academy with the school district has been amazing. That's been a really important program. So multiple clinical roles have come from Shelton High School graduates. We have 7 nurse candidates that are going through kind of the college and then kind of on-site practicums, in the facility. And those will be, 7, Mason County residents, most of them born here, that will then come into our facility starting actually this spring. So we're really excited about some of these more creative partnerships with, the school district and the Health Science Academy. And probably the other thing that we're doing on the workforce is really looking at career ladders. And so even though we're a smaller, I think we employ about 700 people, but I think in larger organizations, it's pretty common to have that, but that's something that we've been building out over the last few years, is having these career ladders, so entry level folks that might be starting out in the cafeteria or in environmental services. We've, I think, had now half a dozen folks that have kind of moved from those entry level roles into medical assistants or CNAs in the hospital. I can think of one CNA and one MA who's now working towards being a nurse. So these career ladders are really starting to get some traction, and that has a lot of, as you can imagine, a lot of internal engagement, a lot of positive engagement with that, because they see that investment and that kind of trying to nurture our own staff.
Thank you. Travis, can you talk about Mason County and the workforce challenges that are most impacting you?
Sure, I think from a county perspective, right now the labor market is just really very competitive. We're competing with private sector and public sector. We're competing with organizations that can provide remote work and hybrid options that we just don't have the opportunity to provide as a government employer. And so it creates a challenge to attract some of those higher end employees that we would really like to have and keep over time. I think the other challenge that we have, and it's a county problem, is that we have a little more archaic pay structure which focuses on tenure a lot more than it does on skills and competencies and some of the things that we really want to attract. And so consequently, even when we do get people in the door, we tend to lose them to organizations that have a more progressive pay structure and focus on skills and competencies rather than just butts in seats for a long amount of time. And so the latter problem we have to work on, the former problem, we're forming partnerships with the school district. For those of you who watched, our auditor spent a lot of time with some school kids from the high school here recently who partnered with the county to come see what county work is like and county jobs and what it would be like and what the opportunities are in county government. And so we're trying to reach out and create those partnerships. And recently we've hired a new HR director who's very up on restructuring jobs and job descriptions and working on competencies and skills and how do we reformulate our pay structure, compensation structure in the county to kind of more match contemporary expectations. So I would say that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you so much. Mark, do you want to speak
Yeah,
from the city's perspective?
I don't want to
Echo?
completely echo Travis, but we're facing the job market in the greater Puget Sound area really affects what our opportunities to recruit. And when you compete with Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, Thurston County, and the state of Washington that's 20 minutes away, and their ability to recruit and pay at a higher rate than we do, it's a tough decision for individuals, right? You can buy a lot of gas and still live here for X amount of dollars. And so we're really focusing on work environment, advancement, opportunities to move through the organization, job shadow within the organization so they can understand what opportunities might be there. Succession planning, obviously, we will face some retirements, some significant retirements over the next year as well. So it's giving the opportunities so people see a future and a future for advancement at the city of Shelton and meet some of the needs outside of compensation. We do a lot of that through recognition, awards. As Travis mentioned too, we're not a remote work environment. I think that's the expectation of our community, in a small community. They want to come into the counter, want to come to the office and speak to somebody face to face. And I'm trying to really recognize that and find that balance with our organization. So there's a constant balance. I saw a commercial the other day. I don't know what the platform was, but the individual said, I came to work and I feel like I should be paid for the day I worked or whatever. It's like, well, is that the reality that we're dealing with? And sometimes it is. With a new workforce, there's new expectations. And how do we constantly reimagine that or address that and meet some of their needs? Certificated professional employees, engineers, wastewater technicians, building officials. We're contracting out our building official service, and it costs us a lot more than it would be if we provided that in-house, but simply the private and public sector on the I-5 corridor is really tough to compete with. So we have to make sure we're able to do that outside of compensation. We recently hired a wastewater technician that came to us from the military after his service ended. It was through a back to work program, training program. He passed his level 1 certification. We hired him just last week, and I think those are great opportunities we need to continue to explore and bring people in, utilize the school district's job shadowing and internship program and any other tools that we have, potentially through the Met Academy as well, to make sure that individuals, people that are in Shelton, we're providing them the opportunity to work here and serve the community they want to stay in.
Thank you so much. Wendy, you want to talk about the port, any workforce challenges or adaptations you're seeing?
Yeah, so, I think the biggest thing I would say is it matters when people are trying to cite their business. That has become probably, if not the top question, that is the question. It's where am I getting my workforce? If I cite here, it's great, but if I don't have workers, so that's a big deal. So we're trying to kind of weed that out. I do kind of wear another hat and sit on the state curb board. And yesterday we had a really long conversation. One of my seatmates, my colleagues on the board, represents employment security, and she said they're trying to figure out new ways of training because of the lack of want to work or workforce, and then the state agencies, Commerce included, they're all not working in the office. So like you said, we're competing with all that. So you can't manufacture product by working at home too easily, typically. So we're not really driving that market either. So it's an external problem more for us, because you said you're a small hospital, but we're a really small port district. And so, I have 9 employees. And so we don't have, we have made the ability to work a little bit off-site, but for the most part, we are also in the office. But we're trying to answer to our tenants who really have that need they need to be in a building, and we want them to be in our facilities, because then that's what kind of drives this whole process. So
thank you. Sheila, any last thoughts on this question from PUD perspective?
Probably can echo a lot of what's been said already. Our emphasis on succession planning lately, and making sure it's hard to follow up the well-earned retirements with really qualified, quality hiring. And when we've got those niche jobs that everybody's talking about, those engineers, those certain technicians, it's particularly hard. We're growing a lot of our own here, and then also we have a long time internship program where we're constantly getting students just here working, and many of them end up returning. And then we're also working with the school district on those job shadows as well, doing something a little bit different. But yeah, like many others, we're trying to adapt and make it work.
Thank you. For our panelists, we have one final question this afternoon, and that is, local businesses depend on predictable services, accessible infrastructure, and a healthy community. What is one upcoming initiative, investment, or partnership that you believe will significantly support Mason County's economic vitality and overall quality of life? Also known as, give us the good stuff if you haven't yet. So we're going to go ahead and kick this back to PUD for our final question. Sheila.
Yeah, well, it's not utility specific, but somebody already threw out the term childcare, and we are excited to see the childcare coalition that's just started up through the EDC and some other partners, just being able to have those conversations and try to find real solutions and work together for that. Childcare is a big issue for any employer, for large employers. Like, we have a lot of families and more babies coming all the time, it seems like. So what are we supposed to do to help them, not just during the workday, but to make sure that they can come back to work after they've had baby? So yeah, Childcare Coalition is going to help find some solutions, and we're excited to be part of that. So that's something that's been really encouraging for us, for our workforce, and looking forward to some discussions and results for that.
Thank you so much. Eric, any final thoughts from the hospital district?
Yeah, we should have compared notes, because Sheila, that was,
Yes.
So what I'll say, just kind of in companion to that is, some of the partnerships that's just integrated within the community. And so I'm thinking of like the Mason Matters, and and I'm thinking of the work like in terms of the Women, Infant, Child Clinic, the WIC clinic at YMCA, and how that came about because of the partnership with YMCA and Mason County Public Health. Mason Health played a small role in that, but there was a lot of really good work, and just how with that better visibility, really well-run clinic. I mean, Mason County Public Health is doing an awesome job of kind of running that clinic, and then YMCA's support, just kind of, you know, in a lot of different ways. It's just, I think the entity that had decided to leave the community that forced this versus the volume of mothers that this new WIC clinic is able to serve is just, it's exponentially different. And so that kind of partnership continuing to come together through organizations like Mason Matters that just brings communities together and creates these kinds of networks and partnerships. I think there's more of that in the future. So that's why I'm also really excited to see more of that kind of partnership and programs.
Wonderful. Wendy, anything from the port, an upcoming initiative, investment, or partnership that you feel is significant?
Yeah, and this stems from kind of the start of the EDC, but getting back the Economic Development District. So for those of you that don't know, we're reestablishing, it's a 4-county consortium, including Thurston County, Heidi, and Mason, Pacific, and Grays Harbor. And this is going to allow all of our counties to get together and actually go after regional dollars that are bigger and better than us in this small community can go after. So I think just that partnership, again, you see my theme here, we're all partnering, we have to. I mean, it's been, you know, we're seeing the results of just kind of like doing the same thing, and it's not, you know, we're not going to get there doing that. We can see that through all the federal dollars that aren't there, the state dollars that aren't there. We got to get better at what we're doing, and I think partnering with our community neighbors is going to help us and get us kind of in that innovative sense of new ideas. And you know, so I've had a couple meetings now with that group, and just they were, you know, they did a tour out here just recently, and we got on the bus. Thank you, Amy, and we toured around, and I mean, you wouldn't believe the people around us in our different communities. They couldn't believe with the Port of Shelton. They thought the airport was going away, it was going to close. They thought, I mean, they have no idea what we do here. So it's a big deal. And so that to me is like one of the really positive, bright future moments. So
Wonderful,
good
thank
partnership.
you.
Yeah.
Travis, from the county perspective, what would you like to share that you feel will significantly improve things moving forward?
I'll have to tell you that I found this question to be the absolute most difficult question. We've got so many good people that work in the county that are doing fantastic work for the community that it's hard to pinpoint. You know, we've got the sheriff's office over there, fully accredited agency that's is expanding the co-responder program to better serve the community and have a better response to calls for service. They're implementing a new DARE program, which is a completely revised program, which is a decision-making model to help kids make good decisions in the community. We've got the auditor's office. He's been working diligently to make sure that our voting is secure. He's bringing stuff back to the county, which we haven't had before, like passport services, or we had in the past and we haven't had recently. You know, we've got our health department, which is completing their community health needs assessment right now to make sure that the resources they provide are what the community wants. I could go on and on about our WSU extension and all the various programs that they have that help the community in, you know, whether serving kids or master gardeners or all sorts of things. So I could go on for a long time about all the fantastic stuff that our folks are doing at the county, but rest assured they are working very hard to provide good services with limited resources.
Thank you. And Mark, you've got the final word from the city. We've got
Thanks.
full items there.
Yeah. How long do I have? You guys have time? I want to focus on the partnership portion, because without our agencies and representative agencies and others out there, territorialism, political divide gets in the way of moving our community forward. We're lucky enough, we have one incorporated city in the county, so it's a little easier for our working relationship, obviously, if you had a number of cities, but we built those relationships over time, and we're making some good headway. We have we just announced a partnership with North Mason Regional Fire Authority for a integrated health program in South Mason County. They're advertising for a peer support specialist. We're working with TMBHO, Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization, for a coordinator position. This is to hopefully help other organizations like Mason Health and remove some of those those people that are regularly occurring or showing up to the emergency rooms because they just don't have the support that they need out in the community. Hopefully getting people through substance abuse treatment, hopefully people getting in housing and mental health treatment in coordination with our designated crisis responder as well. We're really happy that that's an opportunity that was funded through a state grant. If we need to support that further after the grant has expired, we've got opioid settlement funds that are coming to local jurisdictions to help support that. We're working on ILA with Mason County for building code services. We're currently contracting that out. If they have the ability and capacity and have the expertise in-house, there's no reason why we can't share some of those opportunities to work together to make sure that the investments in our community are happening on a regular basis. Travis said it best. We need to get ahead of this development, make sure timing is much more important, and assurities are much more important to the developer than the money is when you're talking about the biggest. Maybe not one house, but when we're talking about 200, 300, 400 houses, time is money to these developers. And if we can get these out the door in a manner that they feel secure to make that investment in our community, they're going to continue making those investments. A previous partnership with the port to obtain nearly $1 million for a sewer line extension on Spring Road. PUD3, we just our council just approved an easement for a switching station near Well 1 across from Olympic College to enhance their ability to, for electrical service in that area. So these are the partnerships that we built in this community and continue to build, and I think that's what's going to continue to move us forward.
Thank you so much. Before we let our panelists off the hook for this afternoon, we do have time for just a couple of quick questions from the audience. We've got about 3 to 4 minutes. You did such a wonderful job there. So I would just like to take a moment and
Just don't wanna say
acknowledge
it out
that
loud.
all of these organizations, this is the staff leadership that came out today, and thank you so much for being here. These are really the folks that are leading the day-to-day operations at each of these agencies. All of them have elected officials that set strategic vision, the direction for where they're going, and then they really make the boots on the ground and make it happen together with their team. So thank you all for being here today. We so appreciate it.